It's a time of unknowns. It's a time of being in the house a lot. And parents are stressed, so are the kids. So, how do you parent during a time of so many stressors? And first, I'm just going to tell you that it's hard. I have two kids. I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. So, I'm doing this as well. The thing is we have no control. So all you have control over is actually yourself. You cannot control the government. You cannot control how your children react, how your city reacts, even how your neighbors react. All you can do is control how you react. I know that's not a simple answer because when we are feeling stressed, then we don't always react in the best ways. So how can you look at this situation as a positive? And the first thing is to say, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay that maybe I've overreacted a little bit or have not felt motivated to do anything except for just survive and maintain my sanity while this is happening. The thing is that how is it working for you? And if you're watching this video, it's probably not working out so well. When you talk to children about COVID, as a child life specialist, it's really important that you do talk to them. The unknown is really scary. They can sense when you're stressed. When you're stressed, they get stressed. When you're in distress, it's actually very, very upsetting and distressing to a child to see their parents are having a hard time. Because if you're having a hard time, then what about me? What is really that bad? And if they can't help me, then how am I supposed to help myself? I'm just a kid. And this could be for a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old. It could be for anybody. So how do you talk to your kids? Have you sat down with them to say, this is what's happening? Do they understand what's happening? You want to be mindful of what they are watching. You have to be mindful of what you are watching as well. There is so much going on out there, and you just get overloaded with all the information. We don't always know if the information is accurate. We don't know if it's up to date, and it could be from a different country or a different province or a different state. So where are you getting that information from, and how much information do you really need in one day? So when children have so much access to the internet, especially as they start getting older, they can look this stuff up, especially those anxious kids. They're looking things up. They're hooking into certain stories. So just be mindful of that, because maybe they're not telling you what's going on, but they're actually really stressed. So ask them, what do you know? Help me understand where you're coming from. What is the situation like for you? How has it been like for you being here? And meet them where they're at, because maybe we think this is not a big deal. You get to stay home. This is your dream come true. You don't have to go to school. Well, maybe for some kids that's going to be okay, but others it's like, okay, so this was nice for a week or two, but now what? And now we're talking about missing out on events and tournaments and parties and not being able just to see my friends. And there's no routine. I have no idea what to expect from day to day. So all those things can be very stressful. And we tend to just say, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. We don't always know that everything will be fine. And it's not our job to fix it. It's our job to sit there with them in some of their stress and kind of, crawl down into, the cave with them a little bit to say, I'm here and I'm not here to fix it. I'm just here and I can just sit in silence, or I can give you a hug, or just acknowledge that this isn't really fair and there's a lot of unknowns, but we are going to get through this as a family. And especially if that child is struggling, ask them what would help, what would make this feel a little bit better. And they will give you their input. Some children, it might take a little bit of time. It might take more than one conversation, but really have those conversations with your children to say, how are the days going? How can we support you? And how do we make this happen? So it might, again, like I said, take a few separate conversations, but give them some time. Ask them for their input. You don't need to take all their input in, but acknowledge their ideas. Then you tell them your ideas, and then how are we going to make it work together? So how do you explain COVID? Well, I'm a child life specialist, so the majority of my career I was, it's a psychosocial role for children, and it's about educating children and supporting them, usually through hospitalization, but I also worked in the community as well. And talking to kids is important. We don't need to give them all the details. So we're just going to give them just the bare minimum, but in ways that they would understand. So what is COVID? What is the difference between the flu and a virus? And just explaining to them that there's different types of sick, and you might have a cold that you would just take some medicine for and have a nap, and usually the next day you're okay. Well, then there's things like the flu, or maybe even having something like diabetes. Those are all different types of sick, and the doctors will help more or less depending on what the illness or diagnosis is. So with something like COVID, we're talking about flu, but it's a little bit different than flu. And the thing is that we are needing to stay inside because we're not keeping our germs to ourselves. There's a lot of sneezing and hand holding and wanting to be friends and things like that, and hugging our friends, or even when we get older, our teenagers want to hang out and they want to share chips out of a bowl, and they don't think about washing their hands. So we actually have to just keep everybody with their family only, and acknowledge that that's really tough. The other thing too is, what are the new rules? What are the new rules in the home? What are the new rules for going outside? And sure, we can go for a walk, but are you going to be walking by the park? Can you explain that to a 3-year-old? Can you explain that to a 10-year-old? Can you explain that to a child that is functioning as 12 years old, but maybe is functioning emotionally more like a 6-year-old? And do we set them up for success or failure? So planning out your visits, planning out your days, and having those conversations with them about what can we do instead of all the no's and what we can't do. So what are some of those things that in the home we do want to talk about? Do you need some house rules? Do we need a routine? Does one child need more than the other? Some children might be doing okay. Do you have children of different ages? I mean, if you've got a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, they could all need very different things. Do they all get along? Do they all want to play together? And, probably not. And then, are you working from home? Or are you home now and then are preparing to go to work? Maybe you've lost your job or have been laid off, so you're really stressed, and it's really tough to be in the moment with your children when you are constantly thinking about things. There's so many different pieces, and all those pieces come together, and if you shake it all up like a snow globe, this is why we're having a lot of chaos and stress. So how do we calm down our stress? And it starts with us. What can you control? What can't you control? And look at each child individually. What are their needs? What would help them? And ask them what would make the days go better. We had a really good day Tuesday. Thursday didn't go so well. Was it just an off day, or is there something that we could do differently? So talk to them. Some children might need more consistency, more routine. Other children might need a little bit of a break. And also take care of yourself. Go to bed on time. Try to put yourself on a routine as well if you need it. If you don't feel like you need it, then don't worry about it. But what are you doing for yourself to help calm down as far as your own stress? And the other thing too is, if you've got a partner in the home, the two of you might be dealing with things differently as well, and the kids can pick up on that. So that's more stress added to the pile. So think about your kids, Think about your own home, what your needs are, and have you talked to your kids? Have you had that difficult conversation? And it might be more than one time. And also have separate conversations with each kid, with each child, and then come together as a family to create a plan to say, how are we moving forward? Do we need some household rules? Who needs a routine and who doesn't need a routine? How do we get outside without getting into a fight over, where we're going to go outside and not being able to go to the park? Is a walk a bad idea, or do we need to go outside and throw a ball around? And if I don't have a good backyard or a space that I can go to, where can we go and how does that work? So I hope this was helpful, and we are in this together. We just have to take this one day at a time. You've got this.